Mr. President, distinguished members of the Security Council, esteemed chairwoman of the Presidency of Bosnia-Herzegovina. In 2 days' time, on May 8th, we will commemorate 80 years since the end of World War II in Europe. This is the day when Hitler's aggression was finally brought to an end, albeit after sustaining incredible losses of life and unbearable scars of humanity. 80 years on, we still mourn the victims of Hitler's aggression. At the same time, these events lead to the conclusion that preventing war and reaching peaceful settlements of conflicts is possible within a rules-based order. This very body, the Security Council of the United Nations, I have the honor to report, by adopting its resolution 1031 on December 1995, is the answer given by those who believed and continue to believe that living in peace and freedom is the first and foremost fundamental right of every human being. Soon after, at the end of May this year, the representatives of NATO countries and the wider international community, as well as the representatives of Bosnia-Herzegovina, Croatia, and Serbia, will get together in Dayton, Ohio, to commemorate the 30th anniversary of the Dayton Peace Agreement, which ended the bloodshed and genocide of 1992 to 1995. The war in Bosnia and Herzegovina brought back old horrors, atrocities, and human agony not seen in Europe since the end of the Second World War. The 1995 Dayton Accords, as a successful reaction to this war, could only be possible on the basis of rules, the Charter of the United Nations, including Chapter 7, and a negotiated settlement paving the way in the region for a common future after the dissolution of Yugoslavia. This peace agreement of Dayton included ad hoc mechanisms and instruments of international control to safeguard a sustainable peace, including human rights and a functioning democracy. Looking onto these two monumental dates here today, before I start my address to the United Nations Security Council as High Representative for Bosnia and Herzegovina, I would like to take a moment to reflect on the value of life over death and the cause of peace over hostility and the preference of humanity over savagery. In this context, there is a personal impression which I feel obliged to share with you today. These days, I'm increasingly approached by citizens of all ethnic backgrounds in Bosnia-Herzegovina, asking me, Mr. Schmidt, can you please make sure that we do not stumble into a war again? To this, I always respond that I do not see a danger of war, as nobody wants to go through such an experience again. Unfortunately, inflammatory political rhetoric, insults, and the disregarding of the terror and the atrocities that culminated in the genocide of Srebrenica are put into question the political will by some actors to ensuring the continued existence of Bosnia and Herzegovina as a state, as stated in Article 1 of the Constitution, which is Annex 4 of the Dayton General Framework of Peace. I have to add that the international community and the neighboring countries did in reality not follow any such attempts. Since my appointment by the PIC Steering Board as the international competent body on May 27, 2021, I have the honor of submitting to the United Nations Secretary General and the Security Council 8 reports on the implementation of the General Framework Agreement for Peace in Bosnia-Herzegovina, better known as the Dayton Peace Agreement. My competence given to the HR, the High Representative by the PIC Steering Board, have been reaffirmed, endorsed, and welcomed in United Nations Security Council Resolutions 1031, 1174, 1247, and others repeatedly. The Dayton Agreement was no ordinary legal document. 30 years after its signing, it remains the basis for the democratic and multi-ethnic structure of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Annex 4, the constitution of the state, is a very complex document which would benefit from further democratic development. The implemented rules and checks and balances to safeguard the representation and participation in decision-making by the three constituent peoples and the others includes non-discriminatory rights for all voters of Bosnia and Herzegovina. All constituent peoples are not politically unitaristic, but contribute to the richness of the respective different political positions beyond the ethnic or religious background. This was highlighted in the so-called Sejdic-Finci judgments 2009 by the European Court of Human Rights, as well as other decisions such as the Komšić and Ljubić case of the Constitutional Court of Bosnia and Herzegovina. These judgments addressing election requirements are to be implemented. The Croat political parties in the country, not only HDZ as a leading party, also supported by the Prime Minister of Croatia, have clearly expressed their position in this regard. The Prime Minister of Croatia also indicated that the issue that has particular importance for Bosnia and Herzegovina's European integration. At this moment, in which BiH is invited to join negotiations over future European Union membership, the need to amend the constitution, not only in this context, is both evident and important. This has to be ensured by the pouvoir constituant of the people and citizens of Bosnia and Herzegovina and their legitimately elected representatives. The international community, based on its competences agreed on and founded in the Dayton Agreement, can play a supporting role in this process. And now allow me another clarification. Colonialism has beaten out the hands of those suppressed their individual and collective rights of decision. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, the right of decision is the hands of all, not unilaterally against the international agreed constitution and agreed laws, but by developing and amending them together. The European Union's requirements regarding the necessary adoption of internationally accepted state of law, with the stability of institutions guaranteeing democracy, the rule of law, human rights, and respect for and protection of minorities, as stated in the Copenhagen criteria, describe the path that needs to be followed. The current status of Bosnia and Herzegovina, based on a Chapter 7 authorization of the UN Security Council, could then be finalized. Furthermore, this could create the conditions to deem the mandate of the ad hoc institutions of the Dayton General Framework of Peace going for outfacing. Today, I have to inform you that the conditions for a full implementation of the civilian aspects of the peace agreement in Bosnia and Herzegovina have vastly deteriorated with respect to previous reporting periods. Especially, the first quarter of this year was marked by a significant rise of tensions, which without question amounts to an extraordinary crisis in the country since the signing of the Dayton Agreement. I may underline that I see a political crisis. I do not yet have indications for a security crisis. As indicated in my report, this sudden deterioration of the conditions is stemming from the reactions to the first instance verdict of the Court of Bosnia and Herzegovina that convicted President of Republika Srpska entity Milorad Dodik for neglecting acts of institutions ultra vires. In hindsight, the recent actions appear to be a deliberate culmination of policies that had been planned and prepared for a long time and which I regularly pointed out in my previous reports. Thus, The recent development was initiated by merely taking advantage of the opportunity that the verdict offered. After the verdict, Mr. Dodik intensified his attacks on the constitutional order of the country by directing the authorities of the Republika Srpska to adopt legislation that effectively bans state-level judiciary and state-level law enforcement in the Republika Srpska, and by even putting on the table a draft entity constitution hinting at de facto secession. This draft constitution, a document of considerable complexity, was revealed shortly after the verdict was announced. The speed with this document, but also the draft laws were made public, suggests strongly that they have been prepared well in advance. For one, these acts and this legislation fundamentally contradict the implementation of the Dayton Peace Agreement and its annexes. In consequence, the Constitutional Court of this country has at once annulled all these laws passed by RSNA.